We're here for ninja level online marketing for tax and accounting firms. And this is a deeper dive into some of the things that we've spoken about at other webinars. So again, if you're just joining us, we're going to go through some basic assumptions that we would hope that you already have dialed in, whether it's conceptually or practically speaking for your firm. But first, if you've never heard one of my webinars, which is kind of crazy if you're listening to this or on podcasts, on the podcast app or wherever you're listening to this, maybe there's a chance you haven't heard me speak before. Just in case, I was the marketing director of a tax firm that went from just about $50,000 a year in fee-based revenue to over $4 million in fee-based revenue in just under 10 years. Growing along the way, we started Tax Pro Marketer back in 2007 because we were doing coaching with CPAs and tax practitioners, and we would tell them all of these things to be doing to market their business and grow, and they just wouldn't do it. What we do here at Tax Pro Marketer, we have become the foremost agency for independent tax and accounting professionals. We're an implementation engine for you. But today is teaching time. So we're gonna kind of peel back the curtain a little bit on what we're seeing. This is a snapshot of my team. And in fact, again, I need to get this, we need to get Christine to fix those images because we have 14 employees now. We are certified partners with Digital Marketer. We're premier partners with Google, which is the highest level of standards that Google holds for their partners. It's not just a partner. We have to be in the top 1% of ethics and excellence with what we deliver. We're Infusionsoft certified partners, blah, 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 blah. All right, so you've also perhaps heard us talking about the digital dominance method. And we're not going to go into all of this today because this is part of the basic assumptions. This is a big thing, and maybe what I'll be able to do is at some point I'll be able to dive in and post these slides, or at least, you know what I'll do is I'll send you slides in the follow-up email to make sure that you've got all this information that you can go off of. So if this is the first time you're seeing this, just realize that your online presence is more than just a website. In fact, these are some of the basic assumptions that I want to dispense with right from the beginning so that we can get a little bit more ninja. First of all, if you're here, you should know that you do need more than a website. You do need especially more than a glorified business card style website, collateral online, some of these kind of cheap websites where you pay $500, $1,000 a year, and they just become a line item on your expense sheet because they don't really do much. And I'm not going to dive into all of the reasons why that's the case, but you probably realize that you do need more than a website since you're here. You need, you know, local listings, you need a content strategy, you need social media coverage, you need all of the different secondary non-localized listings that actually impact your search rankings. You need an SEO strategy, you need an email kind of follow-up system and a nurture strategy. You need a system for following up with existing contacts and clients. This is, again, part of what we do when we implement the digital dominance method on behalf of clients. So again, if that's new to you, forgive me because we're going to be kind of diving a little bit more deeply into some of these areas. If you are interested in learning more about that, I'll refer you to some podcast episodes, and I can also shoot you links to some other recordings of webinars that we've done. The other basic assumption I'm making is that you need to have a conversion orientation with all of your various online properties. That means that you are optimizing your Google My Business profile and your website with the goal to convert these visitors, people to your website, to move them along some sort of relationship spectrum, that it's not just sitting there, okay? Another basic assumption is that email marketing is your hidden weapon. And there's a lot of reasons why this is the case, but especially for service professional firms who trade on their knowledge and expertise. The reason why email marketing is your hidden weapon is because email is by far the greatest medium for communicating that expertise in a silo, vis-a-vis any kind of online context like a website or blog. There's so much noise and distraction. It's so easy for the prospect or the client even to just kind of move along to CNN. All of the political noise that's happening now is causing massive distraction, but people's inbox is still a relative silo. So if you can do and win that inbox, you will win. So again, this is a basic assumption I'm making. I'm going to talk a little bit more about email today, some examples of what's working with email marketing on behalf of our clients. But you know, and you should understand that this really is maybe the most important online marketing medium next to your website, kind of your awareness mechanisms. Another assumption is that tactics are constantly changing, and that the marketing landscape is completely different now than it was even 12 months ago. And that's why we are paying attention to this stuff, so that you don't have to. Tactics aren't changing, but the overall concept of the relationship journey isn't changing. And what that journey is that the goal with any kind of marketing, online, offline, in general, the goal with marketing is to move prospects from cold, i.e., don't know anything about you, into along a relationship journey from cold to warm to client. Or another way of putting it is, being aware, then they engage, then they convert to client, and then eventually, you can do higher level things with them and they ascend. You've heard me speak about that if you've been on one of our webinars before. The other important thing to understand is that, and I've actually spoken about this on recent presentations and webinars in person. I'm actually going to be speaking at Scaling New Heights in about 6 weeks in person, and I'll be talking about some of these things there. But I've spoken about it before, that the path from cold to warm to client, it is no longer kind of the linear journey that it was 12 to 18 months ago. You've probably seen me cite the Google article, the Think with Google article, and I'll put that up on a slide in just a minute to refresh your memory. But one of the paths from cold to warm to client that is beginning to get a lot more hype, I think is the best way to put it right now, is this one. And that is putting up a Facebook interrupt ad, putting that prospect through a squeeze funnel to drive them to a phone call, Zoom, or in-person office meeting, then converting them to a client. And kind of moving people quickly through this squeeze process. In other contexts, I've called this the carnival barker approach. And it really is that, because you get the lowest hanging fruit of the 10% of clients that are willing and still not savvy enough to not be tricked by these sort of squeeze click funnel type processes, where you get onto this landing page that's a one-pager, and you prospects are savvy now that they're being marketed at, and the BS meter is so much stronger with your prospects than it used to be. But yes, there's a certain small subset of folks that it will work for, that they get kind of squeezed through this process. And these will be the desperate clients. These will be the kind of clients that aren't, maybe the best kinds of clients, because for whatever reason, they're not savvy enough to not get taken by that process. But on top of that, again, there's that concept of the nonlinear path. And this is something that isn't talked about a lot by a lot of gurus, because they want to give you the easy button. They want to allure you with, the silver bullet that's going to add an extra $100,000 guaranteed to your bottom line. What Google is seeing with their data on their back end is that customer intent is redefining the marketing funnel. Again, I've cited this on webinars. They posted this over a year ago. And what it means is that marketers can no longer plan on a linear journey, and that consumer choice heavily influences reach and frequency. And what that means is the modern prospect is scattershot all over different platforms before they're making a decision. And that's just for even small level choices like buying a particular product, let alone working with a CPA or a tax practitioner to hand over the most sensitive details of their financial life. So this particular avatar that Google cites, and the actual URL for this piece is available on the slides. I'll get that to you again later on. But look, 375 touch points before they made a decision. So again, the online marketing relationship journey recognizes that that's a reality and doesn't try to shoehorn the modern prospect into one medium. So an alternative kind of path from cold to warm to client is this, and this is a lot more common now from the data that we are seeing. That there's a business owner, which by the way is the best kind of client to be finding right now for a variety of reasons, not just because of the commodification of the 1040, but also because they respond, they're higher paying clients, they respond better to a year-round pitch if that's what you're doing. There's a whole host of reasons why that's the case. But usually business owners, they're coming to the internets and they have a problem to solve. And so they're searching for a particular keyword, and that's usually where the thing begins. Now, it could be, there's a lot, this is just one example of a pathway. So I'll kind of walk you through this in just a second. But there's actually about like 12, 13 different pathways. One of the pathways that is a referral. And how does a referral get taken online? That's something that you should be thinking about. So if one of your clients refers one of their friends, do they just pick up the phone and make an appointment? Sometimes. Or they check you out on all the various platforms online. And if all you've got is like a squeeze funnel to put people through, more often than not, that'll turn off a referral client. Not always, of course, because referrals are awesome because they come very, very warm. But usually what happens is they'll check you out on your reviews, your Google My Business, they'll check you out on social media. But what we're seeing, so it's back to this example, this pathway. This is just one of many, and I'm developing a new presentation about these various pathways based on the data that we're seeing, some of which we're going to be sharing with you today. But a client will search for you. Maybe they search for something, best accountant in the Peoria area, and you're in Peoria, so maybe your website comes in. Maybe you've got a piece of content on there that says something like, hey, if you're looking for the best accountant in the Peoria area, look no further. And you've got a blog post about that, which is something that we actually work into the blog posts that we do for our clients. And so it's got a localized keyword, and it's speaking to the long tail search results. And if I'm getting too jargony, please tell me in the chat. But and then they come to your website. But for whatever reason, maybe they get distracted and they close out the browser tab, or maybe they're one of these people like you, maybe that has 30 to 40 tabs open. They go to another tab and it just gets buried in the tiny little tabs on the top, and they just forget about it, right? Well, the good news is if you got it set up right, you've got a retargeting pixel on there so that maybe they go look to one of these other tabs and there's suddenly a Google Display Network ad that shows up to them on CNN.com. And they go, oh, golly, that's right. I was looking at that website. So I'm going to go back to the website because I click on that retargeted ad. I'm going to dive a little deeper, and maybe I'm going to opt in for the lead magnet or the kind of the white paper about what's happening, in the tax situation right now. So then the relationship has moved along. But notice that this wasn't this is all on the beginning stages of the relationship. Then they go through an email sequence. They start to see what they like. Because again, this is a savvy kind of like got their hands up sort of prospect. They're not just going to jump at the first girl that makes eyes at them at the dance, so to speak. And they check you out on your email sequence that you've got. You start building that relationship, but then so they check you out on the socials. They'll go to LinkedIn, they'll go to Facebook, they'll see what kind of stuff is on there. Maybe you haven't posted in 6 months to your Facebook page, and they might leak out of the funnel there. By the way, every one of these stages, they can leak out of the funnel. And that's what's really important to understand, is that you've got to have a strategy in all of these different components, because the nonlinear nature of the modern prospect journey is such that they're constantly leaking out of the quote unquote funnel, the quote unquote journey, so to speak. So they check you out on the socials, and they'll look for your reviews on the Google My Business listing, and they'll see what other people are saying. Because everybody knows that the best kind of advice is to find it from random jokers on the internet who like to post stuff, right? That's obviously clearly the most important source of information for. But do you know what? Over 85% of people who read online reviews trust those reviews as much or more than what their referred friend might have said. So you've got to have a strategy for reviews. Maybe you've got a bad review. Have you replied to it? So maybe there's no reputation management happening. Are you seeing what I'm talking about here? You've got to have more covered on your online property, and maybe finally then they have you open on their cell phone and they hit the call button on the Google My Business listing because you've got it set up right, and you call their office, and hopefully you've got a script to bring them in, and the journey begins. Okay, now that sounded complicated, but in point of fact, it's actually not that complicated when you set up these various properties with a conversion orientation. So again, we're going to dive into some of these different things that we're seeing. Christian Jones is here. You see his, in all point of fact, a lot more handsome face. In fact, we had a new employee that we hired about 3 or 4 months ago, who his wife was saying that Christian was the most handsome person he'd ever seen. I was a little bit offended, or she's ever seen. I was a little bit offended because, but it's okay. Anyway, that's a great way to lead in. So Christian, in case you don't know him, he's been with us, gosh, almost 5 years now. He's got his own business on the side that he runs a couple weeks a year. Been running a fireworks stand for 15 plus years. They dominate. It's a high revenue side business that he's built. So he's actually putting a lot of his stuff into action there, as well as on behalf of our clients. He leads a team of 7 who are on our team here, Tax Pro Marketer, who are constantly optimizing and looking for different ways to build in better results for our clients. So what I think we're going to talk about first, Christian, if I'm not mistaken, is advertising, right? Because one of the things that we've been doing for the last, 18 months or so, 18 months, golly, time flies. We have been running these Google pay-per-click ads on behalf of clients. So Christian, why don't you take it away, and I will just make snarky comments.
Yeah, glad to be with you guys. And, you know, if you've heard our webinar before, you've probably heard it mentioned that I run some retail fireworks stands in Kansas City. And to be honest, like a lot of the stuff that we do for Tax Pro Marketer clients, I've done for my business, and that would maybe be a fun case study to do sometime and show you what can happen in a vacuum. But first, advertising, okay? So this is kind of zooming back, COVID-19. We're really not going to talk about this beyond this slide, but this is the environment we're currently in. So this is hard data from a couple of different industries on advertising. So the search advertising click-through rate, the conversion rate, and the cost per click. So if you're somewhat familiar with marketing and advertising metrics, then you get what this means. But generally speaking, let me just tell you that the cost to advertise has gone down due to COVID. And I actually have more slide data or data on different slides later on discussing kind of general marketing trends, but none of it should be surprising. A lot of people, because of COVID-19 and the insanity of it, man, what's one of the first things to go? Marketing and advertising. Where does that leave us as we talk today about ninja level tactics? No matter what it is on advertising, generally speaking, and our data from our clients will support this, it's cheaper than it was last year. It is cheaper than it was last year because not in every market, but generally speaking, there's just less competition. There's less money going in, and that's how these systems work, is a supply and demand.
By the way, everybody, just so you can see the man behind the curtain. Hi. All right. So do you want to drive or do you want me to drive?
I'll drive. Okay. Here we go. Let me reach over. Is this guy hooked up?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if we're talking about advertising and that means nothing to you, there's a lot of places you can advertise. Yelp, Bing, Facebook. Nate talked about the Carnival Barker, this squeeze funnel approach. That usually lends itself to Facebook. And I've actually talked, which is okay to kind of tell stories on this webinar in addition to tactics, because I think the stories can be helpful to elude why we're talking about these things. I've talked to multiple people that have surfaced up on our radar. We walked through an analysis with them. Multiple people in the last week who in the last 12 months have dropped 5 figures, high, mid 5 figures on Facebook advertising with 0 results. Zero traceable, trackable results. And so it's not that Facebook advertising is impossible to get results from, but when we talk about advertising, one of the biggest reasons we focus on this, and again, this is somewhat ninja tactics, somewhat just orientation and bringing you guys into why we talk about Google advertising. for 18 months now, we've been running a Google advertising program and got very highly certified to do it. It's because on Google, there's intent. There's an intent on Google that there isn't on Facebook. Someone is not on Facebook to search for an accountant and a tax professional. And there are industries and there are even ways for this industry to do Facebook advertising well, but really the industries that work well with Facebook advertising are not financial services of any type. So Google, people are looking for you, and we're talking about ranking here, okay? I'm gonna talk about the section beneath this, the organic maps listing, in the second half, but the first half is going to be advertising. I want you to think about how to rank here, what we've done, and what's worked. So this is, again, a little orientation on the data that I showed you before. People are looking even more so now because of the pandemic, because of the craziness of the last year, for experienced help online, period. And if you see in the back end of the sentence, I didn't highlight it, but they're seeing cost per clicks fall and relieve pressure from normally competitive industries. That's ours. Ours is a very normally pretty competitive industry in most cities. And so again, orientation, ninja level perspective, number one is it's a great time to advertise. And I'm gonna walk you through just a few examples of ad campaigns that we've launched and the results that came from them. And so this campaign is targeting kind of two different prospects, which we've talked about before. Hey, when you do advertising, don't just have one catch-all ad for your different services or different prospects. Really segment, have different ads, and you'll see some of our ads here momentarily, what they actually look like. But you should have multiple ads addressing different prospects. And so for this person, it's business owners and it's tax resolution. And this is June 1st to September 15th. Okay, so you can see the start date back in June and what's happened since then. In and out of tax season, these numbers are fairly consistent. Obviously, this is actually not post-tax season because we went until July 15th this year. But you can see, obviously, towards the end of this extended deadline tax season, a bit of a dip. But generally speaking, a lot of engagement for both tax resolution and business owner related ad campaigns, all of it's combined in this data report. And so some of this might just feel like, another language to you. Generally speaking, if you're above a 1% click-through rate, which in this case, we're at a 2.91% click-through rate, that's pretty killer. That's amazing. The overall average cost per click of $3.17, 522 clicks. A part of me giving you this data is we get the question all the time, like expectations. If I do advertising, what should I expect? This is like really clear data of what happens for a client that did advertise with us. And here's maybe some of the ninja level information on advertising is, of course, there is so much low-hanging fruit in the ad world around SBA loans and PPP loans and stimulus bill. And are all of those clients exactly aligned? No. There's definitely, just like with anything, you've got to be able to sort through some of the clutter. But generally speaking, in this year, and I don't think it's going to change, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would assume the chaos and the change, both from a legislative perspective, the government making big shifts, an election year, tax season next year might not be, run of the mill like this one wasn't. Generally speaking, this whole new area of SBA, PPP, any of that has been crushing it for our ad campaigns, which is what you're looking at here. You're looking at various different campaigns and keywords that we've targeted.
So
and what's come from
let me just pipe in and say that this necessitates that you've got content oriented to these keywords and that you're driving prospects to content that actually lines up with what they're looking for.
Yes. And hey, this is always in the context of, like Nate hammered at the beginning, you can't just do ads. You really do have to have, for us, it's blogs, it's pages that we build that drive our ad traffic that represent, hey, you click this ad asking about this thing. We have a follow-up page to discuss and describe, here's how we can help, fill out some information. But for this person, not going after tax preparation, going after a specific business client and some tax resolution work, they've had 29 conversions from one of their campaigns over a 3-month time period. And it is different client by client. I'm going to show you one in a second that's had like hundreds of conversions. But what would that mean for you to spend, like this person did, $1,600 over 3 months on an ad campaign and get 30 pre-qualified prospects who are basically raising their hand saying, I'm ready to go. This is what I'm looking for. here's the type of data that our clients get. So like I said, you drive ad traffic. If you're going to do ads by yourself, which is kind of what we're talking about here, just to teach, if you're going to do it, you must, in the conversion process, collect key information that's going to help you sort through the clutter. Because that's a big part of advertising is sometimes you get people raising their hand that just should not be reaching out to you. This is our weed out process.
So one of the things that we do here is we put the lead magnet behind some pre-qualification questions that we've built out on these folks. And you can see some of these pre-qualification questions. You know, do you own a business? Do you have back taxes? What's the approximate amount? Do you have an in-house bookkeeper or accountant? Do you own it? Da, 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 da. That way it kind of weeds out the cruddy tire kickers and it's actual good leads rather than the people who are just, ready, for the party or whatever.
Yeah. Here's some real call data because for all of our Google search campaigns, which I'll talk about display probably a little bit too, but there's different ways you can advertise on Google. Search is the most prevalent option. That's the one that shows up on the Google homepage. There are ways to add extensions, which I won't explain, that we track calls of. And so we're looking at an average of a 2-minute talk time for 18 calls for people that came from this campaign as well. And so those are additional conversions from the number 29 I just gave you. Those are people who filled out the form and then also, or separate people who clicked call. So the point being, we're getting great engagement for, it's not nothing. You're not spending $50, but over a period of months, like a $1,600 investment, a couple of grand, I have people spending way more, but this is just kind of an example of someone who has only been running ads for a few months and what have we done and what's happened. You can get excellent results from your ad campaign because again, costs are lower, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, and a lot of your competitors are pulling out. So again, here's the high-level data that I just talked through. 17,000 impressions, 522 clicks, that's a 2.9% click-through rate, and all of these people that we track and show them, here's who's reaching out to you. Now, this isn't on my slides, but I would be remiss not to share this with you if you're gonna do this on your own. Or if you do this with us. Either way, this is really relevant to kind of mention and at least name. We don't need to flesh this out fully, but if you don't have a clear path or process in your office, whether it's you answering the phone or your gatekeeper or your admin, you must be ready to receive phone calls from prospects if you're going to advertise. Now, if you're like, listen, I'm capped, I don't want to advertise, I don't want any new business, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the person who with my online, whatever I'm doing, organic, which I'll talk about, or advertising, if you're not building in and planning and putting time before craziness descends on us, and I know it's been a crazy year for you guys in general, planning for how to receive a prospect who finds the stuff you've put out there that you're paying for if you're running ads and walks them through a clear process that lands them. Because there's a problem that I see commonly, even with these people that come in and throw around big numbers. I've dropped 10 grand on Facebook ads in the last 2 months. Nothing's worked. But when I called them for that meeting and I tried to get on the phone with them, it was a hassle. It was some robo, VA type thing that really didn't land and wasn't helpful. You must think about your phone onboarding if you're going to go this route.
On our membership site, we actually have a sample script. I believe it got put through. We've completely redesigned our membership site. So if you haven't checked that out on taxpromarketer.com and go to more resources, we have a script that you can use. And if it's not there, I'll make a note to make sure that it's up there. I've given it out in the past. A great intake script to make sure that you are actually capturing people who call, because this really, really does matter. All right. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, we can kind of cruise through the rest of this because, combining the 18 and the 29, these are 46 real pre-qualified prospects, and this person had to pay money to get an ad campaign going. But what would that mean for you if you're targeting similar type services, whether it's for business owners or tax resolution? I'm hoping that this resounds as really lucrative. This could be a game changer. You've got to think about your back-end processes. You can't just throw money at the wall. That's kind of like what we talk about in general. That's why we usually don't just talk about ads in isolation, because without a more robust website, process, email follow-up, ads doesn't work as well without email follow-up. It just doesn't. But this is available to you. This is real data that we're really seeing, and hopefully you can evaluate if this is something that, again, would be meaningful. I think it is.
Hey, before we get into some more results that we're sharing, we're going to be talking a little bit more about like some local SEO also, and Christian is going to be sharing some of what we have seen work, some new things that we've been discovering over the last few months that are brand new, we've never talked about, some things on reviews. I'm going to share some email marketing examples that you'll see, not just stories, and what makes those work. But I also wanted to highlight, we don't have a slide for this, but we are actually giving away 4 free tools that we've developed and have access to now. I'll explain more of what they are at the end, and I'm going to put in the chat window the URLs. Actually, they go to the same place, taxproleads.com. You see that on there. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this now, or it'll take you to taxpromarketer.com/flow. And on that, you'll see, if you've not signed up for a lead flow session, but this is a different page that we've set up for this webinar, where you can get access to these 4 free tools when you answer some of the questions and fill those out. That's going to be for the first 20 people who sign up for a free lead flow acceleration session, which is actually its own value, where we go over a report on your local market area and hand you a blueprint for what needs fixing for your online marketing. And that's whether or not you use our services. So this is not a glorified sales call. This is an actual time where we'll consult with you on your goals for your business, give you the blueprint, and we'll walk away. If you want to talk to us about what it looks like for us to do all these things that we're talking about, of course, we're not a charity. We'd love to have you as a client if you're the right kind of client. But you get that at taxproleads.com. So again, Christian, why don't you keep on going?
Yeah. So you're going to see some very similar data from the last ad group. This is just a different client, different area of the country. And here we go. So at roughly the same amount of advertising spend.
This one I put in the email if you guys didn't see this one.
Yeah, this one's fun. This is a juicy one. Although not completely uncommon for our clients. It just, again, it depends on scope, depends on a few factors, but roughly the same spend. So the last one was about 1,600 and change. This one's 1,700 and change over the same time period. 29,000 impressions, 2,200 clicks, 7.63% click-through rate, $1 or 0.79 cents, 79 cents cost per click.
What do you think accounts for the differences in these numbers? They're both very good. This is like very, very good.
Yeah. I honestly think that the first slide leading into the advertising data really plays into this guy's results, because he's in Los Angeles. He's in a very big market. And I think generally speaking, especially a city like Los Angeles that's experienced huge crackdown, a lot of businesses have shut. And what's the first thing to go? Marketing and advertising budgets, especially for this industry, right?
So you say that the field has cleared a little bit for this client.
There's obviously a whole host of reasons, but generally speaking, to do this well in a city like LA, Chicago, or New York is impossible.
This particular client's been with us for about 16 months also. So we've had more of a traction on the search side.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I'm seeing a question from Tyrone and John. I don't see the links yet. We'll make sure. Did you send those to all panelists or to?
Oh, you know what? I sent it to.
We're gonna drop the links to all attendees. We dropped it to all panelists. Sorry, guys.
I just sent it to Christian. That's fun.
I have the links, so you guys don't.
Thank you.
Oh, now you do. There you go. So those are the links Nate talked about. I'm going to give you, Tyrone and others who are probably asking the same question, how do I get click-through rates like that? I'll give you some ideas, but it's more of, again, like a plan that you have in place before you need it.
Is Tyrone a client?
I think so, Tyrone. Okay. I think you're a client.
Yeah.
Tell us if you are.
Yeah.
So what's going on with this campaign? Yeah, thanks. Of course you are, Tyrone. This campaign, again, I think I've got this data. Hey, can you click on the screen for me?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Here's an example of some of his various keywords we've targeted. Tyrone, this is a huge part of getting better click-through rate. This is like page 1 of 19. You can't see it at the bottom. There's like 19 pages of keywords that we're targeting. Some of them have very little engagement or cost. You can see that on the far right-hand side. Like obviously some of these keywords are eating up more of his budget than others. But generally speaking, we find those high performing keywords, which is probably back to Nate, your question, why are we finding such good data? We're finding it because we keep fishing for keywords. We keep fishing and we adjust. We do not set it and forget it. We are manipulating what keywords we're targeting. We're manipulating the content that's being delivered, and we're playing with both cost per click and conversions. And if you do that with a level of expertise, if you know what you're doing or have someone that knows what they're doing, oh my gosh, you can absolutely maybe not get below $1 in cost per click or 7% click-through rate, but you can get above the benchmarks or below them.
Let me speak to the question. David Feeney, hey David, wants to know why the local focus versus focusing on a niche in a more broad market. The quick answer to your question is that not everybody has a niche business. Most people, their primary market is their local market. We actually are capable of working with niche-oriented tax and accounting firms. That's a whole different kind of strategy. But because there is a niche and specialty focus, you can still dial in some pretty good content and advertising, click-through rates or cost per click on that. Most of the time when people are targeting nationally, depending on the niche, the cost per click gets pretty high. But some niches, it really isn't as intense. So where we would want to focus on niche-oriented firms is content, and also making sure that the targeting of that niche is specific enough that we're able to dial in that cost per click properly. And so what the assumption there is that when there's a more specific keyword focus, the cost per click can go down. Now, sometimes it can go through the roof depending on the particular niche. I know I was talking to a marketing agency owner, a friend of mine. They do HVAC agency stuff, and they're looking at like $100 per click in their industry. So you've got to have a lot of things dialed in to make sure that those clicks are turning into clients. So it just depends. There's such a wide variation. But the vast majority of our clients and the people that are on this webinar and that we've spoken to in the industry, David, to answer your question, do have more of a local focus than a niche focus, but niche can really work. So that's definitely something that we could work with.
Yeah, great question. So we'll skip through this hard data. We were just pulled up the phone calls. He had 123 phone calls from June to mid-September. And then again, he had other people reach out to him. But I'm going to shift to local now. Perfect transition, David and Nate, because if you're going to do niche, or if you're going to advertise in a market outside of your backyard, you can do it. But there's a lot of prospects in your backyard that you don't even have to advertise to reach. Now, this process I'm about to talk about, if it's unfamiliar to you, is not as immediate as advertising. What we're talking about is the way we describe SEO is sending signals to Google. So you want to send positive signals to Google. And what you're looking at here on this list is one of the most relevant sheets on how to rank that I've got. And this is from Moz Local, just to give them credit. A wonderful resource site. And this is like, how do I get myself to rank on page 1 of Google? And you've got a variety of different areas that are all relevant, kind of back to this digital dominance method. You have to do a lot of things to play into Google's good graces. But at the very top of the list, let me point out maybe the first 3. Google My Business Elements, okay? Google Reviews, which we will talk about here today, and then proximity of the searcher to the place of business. That's 3rd.
And the physical address in the city of search.
Right. So these location proximity things are 2 of the top 4 elements for rank.
Let me read these out for people who might be listening to the podcast live. So Google My Business Elements is 7.4. Google Reviews is 6.5. And this is 10 is the most important, 1 least important. So this is ascending down from order of most important to least to lesser important, but still important. Proximity of searcher to the place of business is 6.4. The physical address in the city of search is 6.1. Consistency of citations on primary data sources such as directories, aggregators, and platforms. We talked about this when we've referenced cleaning up the junk that's out there. On page SEO elements, this is referring to your website.
Right.
Affects your local listings. Your local listings engagement, i.e. if there's actually click-through rate, clicks to call, or direction requests. Here's a ninja tactic that I highly recommend that you implement because we've actually seen this work. If you've got employees in your office or the people who drive to a physical location and are able to in this environment, COVID environment, if that's happening, if it's not, you can't do this right now, have them navigate via Google Maps to your office and using directions and go there. Because what that does, everything that is done is a signal to the algorithm. And if more people are navigating to your location using the Google product, it sends very positive signals. And so every day, have people navigate to the office. And even if you're meeting a client, send them the shared Google My Business listing so that they use the Google navigation. And I know that sounds crazy, but it actually affects your rankings because it sends signals to the algorithm that people are going to this place and it's happening. So that's 5.5. Organic user behavior, on the website, that's like the click-through rate, the bounce rate, the time on site, etc., and the quality authority of inbound links to the domain. Notice that last one, the quality and authority of inbound links to the domain. It used to be, this was like at the top of the list for search engine optimization, but for localized businesses, you'll notice that the Google My Business and how these things play together matters more for the ranking than anything else.
Yeah. Hey, John King raised a good question, and it's really only pertinent to our existing clients, but it is pertinent to you if you're doing these things on your own well, or have another company doing it for you, or if you ever have us do it for you in the future. John asks, hey, I get people calling me all the time saying my Google listing is messed up and they want to fix it. And what's funny about those people who call, whether it's our clients or if you've ever experienced this, it only starts happening once you get a profile properly set up. They're scraping the internet, they're scraping new profiles, and they're trying to pick off unsuspecting people who are like new to Google My Business.
Yeah.
And so you can 1,000,000%, if you have trust in who you're working with, which in our case, yes, you're okay, John, but if you're working with anyone that's really credible that you trust, ignore all of those spam calls because they are spam, period. Good stuff. So again, this is kind of back to our visual. I was showing you how to rank in the ads section and what we've been doing there. What I'm talking about now in that last visual is about how to rank here. I want you to rank in the map section, right? So there's a whole lot of things on that list that isn't here in this kind of section of 3 things I'm going to cover. If you want to talk about the basics, grab a call with us. I'd be glad to go over them. They are some of them more substantive than these things, but these are newer things. Some of these within the last 2 days. Part of our shifting in the content is some new stuff came out that is very brand new. That's, I think, pertinent for you guys to think about as we approach another busy season. And the first is Google Reserve. Not everyone has access to this yet. Google Reserve is something that's been soft launching through the pandemic to create your Google My Business page as more of a home page where everything for your business can happen. And why is that? I've said this before, if you've heard me speak, Google is greedy. If Google keeps you natively within their interface, their Google My Business platform, they get more ad revenue. They get more user engagement data. They don't send you elsewhere to either your website or some other profile or some other scheduling software. So what they're trying to do, although it's okay to do, it's not a bad thing, it makes sense. They're making it easier for you to connect from your Google My Business page into setting up a reserved video conference. It's not for everyone. But I do want those of you who do actually have a good sales process in place or are going to have one in place, getting this set up is something that we can help with if you get there, but it's also something that you should really strongly consider because in the age of people not driving to an actual business and wanting to kind of pick up the phone or get on a video chat, everyone's becoming quite familiar with Zoom. This is a really interesting development that is brand new. Like this just dropped specifically to us in the search engine world within the last couple of days. So setting up your Google My Business page for your local business with a video conference scheduling is a process through Reserve with Google integrations. So it's something that you can add as a feature on your Google My Business page. Just to be clear, you can set up different features like, hey, my business has a ramp. If you have a wheelchair, it's pet friendly. Oh, and I do video conferencing. And you can go to the next level down, which is reserving with this, accredited list from Google My Business of different providers. So I kind of mentioned this already, but this was a question asked to a bunch of marketing agencies, just to be clear. This is marketing agencies being asked the question of, is Google becoming the new homepage for local businesses? And 35% strongly agree, 42% agree. So we're looking at over 70% of people in this space, in the search engine marketing space, who are saying, hey, the shift towards Google being something that kind of is attempting to replace your website, even though your website actually has a lot to do with how you rank on Google. It's fuzzy. I know it's convoluted. It's both and. This is where things are going. So if you're not addressing Google My Business, this is maybe your warning shot. You need to adapt.
This is something that we will do. We do on behalf of our clients. What I am really interested in seeing here is the trend line, because a year ago at this point, it was a 64% agreement for all the sharks out there like us who run agencies and who are professional marketers. Now it's over 3/4, 77% agree that Google is the new homepage for the local business. So by the way, this is one of the ways that these squeeze funnels fail you. Yes. Because if you've got a squeeze funnel set up linked to advertising and that's your primary engine, and you don't address this is the primary place that people are finding professional service companies now. And it's a big deal.
To me, it's never going to be a fad or a trend to do ads to ClickFunnels. But I think the more that we mature into this.
Well, it's a noisy trend that a lot of people are talking about on Facebook.
It's definitely trendy right now. It's relatively trendy in this industry and in others. It's just a novel thing, and it's a good thing.
Can I tell you? Let me tell everybody why it's trendy. Okay. Russell Brunson, the founder of ClickFunnels, actually I've known him for quite some years. Met him, been in small group masterminds with him before he'd even founded ClickFunnels. He has spawned scores and scores of guys who take his stuff and they become like, they pretty much cut and paste his advertisements and a lot of the templates that they built to sell to different verticals, different industries on how to win, online. And those guys, those scores and scores of guys are getting rich, and their clients are often not. Now, Russell's a good guy. I do like him. Again, the founder of ClickFunnels, which is the primary squeeze funnel software out there right now. There's others now that have built their own platform too. But it's these folks, and they do the, hey, interrupter Facebook ad. And that's not the kind of ad that a sophisticated, servant-oriented CPA firm tax professional is going to win with. So it might work with, like pool services and visual-oriented stuff, gyms, but for CPAs and tax practitioners, it can work for a certain personality type. But most people in our industry, it's not the right thing.
So skipping along, these are, again, this is the space of kind of secondary or even tertiary things that you should be doing to the primary meat of get your Google My Business page set up, handle it properly. We're going to talk about reviews in a second, but these are things that we don't talk about as much in our normal presentations that also are newer and very much worth considering. Point number two, or case in point, which is point, case in point, Google My Business posting. You need to post.
This is why I write the content.
This is why Nate is the English major. Posting content to Google My Business is something that, again, we do for our clients. These posts expire after 7 days. If you've ever done a post and you can't find it, it's because it's not there. But you can put up content, which again, this is a signal, period. This is a signal to Google, and it gets engagement. It gets engagement. It's a post that will show up beneath your profile on Google My Business in the map section, and is massively important, and it usually comes with a photo. So I've included, this is for January to September for a client. Or no, I'm sorry. This is January to September for one of our clients. His photos on Google My Business, the big number, this 33,000, that's a big number, but look at the percentage. That's an increase over 9 months. So he started this Google My Business posting strategy with us and has seen a nearly 300% increase in visibility, regardless of those people turning into clients who saw the photo. What we're getting at here is this is a product of him moving up the rankings.
So ninja tactic, post to your Google My Business page with photos, content. Just keep doing it every week, at least once a week.
At least once a week. Now reviews. Let's spend some time here. This is the 6th thing. Am I reading that right?
I believe, yeah.
Number 6, but this
Yes.
is in relation to rank. I think we could make a good case that Google My Business reviews actually have a lot more to do with conversion than nearly anything else. And I bring up this example of one of our existing clients in their local market. They're the top option. They're ranking number 1. It's not just because of their reviews, but my point being, regardless of getting to number 1, once you get in this 3-pack that we're looking at on the map, it's a dogfight. If my client or our client was ranking number 3 and it was these same 3 options, who are they going to pick? So ninja level tactic is look at the obvious. You need to get reviews because it's one of the top 10 things you can do to rank locally. And once you get competitive in almost any market, unless you're rural, unless you're in the middle of nowhere and there's no competition to speak of, which is some people, there's just, a mom and pop shop and an HR block shop and you already look amazing. Most of the time you've got to make yourself look really good to your end prospect. And so regardless of this being the 6th factor, this should be one of your top factors in terms of getting people to say yes to you. You must get feedback on Google tomorrow. You need to start now. If you want to get new clients through next tax season, really at any point in time in the future, organically, without paying for advertising, you must have a strategy for getting reviews.
Which, by the way, one of the tools we're giving away today will generate reviews on your behalf in a pretty hands-free way. Again, I put that in the chat window, taxproleads.com, or it'll take you to taxpromarketer.com/flow. And if you fill out the questionnaire there, get to the calendar appointment, we will set you up with the tools that generates reviews for you on your behalf. Results, I want to make sure that we get into, but I mean, it's worth sharing because what's interesting is the duration that some of these folks have been with us. This client in Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk. That's how Virginia. I'm from Virginia. We say Norfolk.
He's a Virginian. Is that right?
Virginian.
Virginian.
Okay. All right. And then Colorado Springs, who's been with us for 8 years. Staten Island, about 19 or 18 months or so. 19 months. Houston for about 6 months, 5 months. So this is Norfolk.
Yeah.
So what were you wanted to highlight in these different?
What I wanted to highlight here is this could seem really self-serving or vain for us just to put up some gaudy numbers. What I'm trying to articulate is if you do these things, you can absolutely get visibility. And so this is like, hey, as much as we can, take these tools, do this stuff, grab a phone call with us. We'll try and help, even if it's not with us. But if you do these things, you will get results like this because Google is not, you don't rank on page 1 by accident. It's not happenstance. If you've never experienced this, you can get there and you can absolutely start to generate regular leads without paying for advertising. And so I've shown clients that have been with us for 8 years. Man, is this her? Go to Colorado Springs. 8 years, January to September, 1,500 phone calls without any advertising. This is all organic phone calls. People who find her on their phone and click call. That's what we're tracking here. And then people even this year. Let's go to the last one, Houston. Houston, this year, 635 phone calls from February 1st to September 21st. That's 100% increase from the prior season.
And 2/3 of those are from discovery searches. So if you look in the far left on this data sheet, you'll see the impression proportion for discovery versus direct. The direct search is when people search by name. Discovery is when they search by category or keyword and they land on the particular listing. And that can be in the browser or on the maps listing. It just sort of depends on how they engage. So it's over 2/3 in discovery search, almost 100% increase in discovery search impressions, whereas direct search impressions are holding steady. So this is one that's just been with us for 4 or 5 months, but this actually shows the picture of the difference between what happens, vis-a-vis not doing it.
So one thing maybe from this that I think is also worth pointing out, this data here is tracking results. Ninja level tactic, whatever this is, 95. Track your results.
Yeah.
Have a way to track progress, or it's going to be really hard to make good decisions.
All right.
Take it away.
Well, I mean, there's more that we could talk about, but just for the sake of time, I want to share some emails. I talk about email all the time. We've been doing email marketing on behalf of our clients since 2008. And from the beginning, we've taken a different approach. Now, during COVID, I was doing multiple emails each week for all the different categories. I write these myself. I wanted to share the recent email that I wrote actually yesterday, and I'm seated on a bunch of client lists. And I want to share this as an example of one of the ways that you've got to be kind of setting yourself apart in the marketplace and where email is headed. I'm using this as an example, and I'll read it to you. So especially those who are listening on the podcast or maybe aren't paying attention to their screen. Email is such a relational medium now. It used to be that the way people approached it, it was like kind of memo-ish. Like here's the corporate direction of the company. Here's the article, what have you. But email, you'll see the ones that do it right, and some of the large brands are starting to do this where they're identifying a sender, or even if they're sending it from the name of the brand, they're writing in a more casual, relationship-oriented style. Now, obviously, it's tricky to write emails in a way that our hundreds of clients can feel comfortable putting their name behind. So we kind of have to do it delicately. But so you'll get what I'm doing here. So this is the one that is going out today on behalf of clients. With the passing of Justice Ginsburg 45 days before the election, we've officially entered the political crazy season. Now I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to explain why I did some of the things that I did in this email. This, on top of so much conflict surrounding public health measures. It's also in addition to all of the conversation around racial pain, the difficult issues surrounding so many protests and urban riots. Many are without meaningful work or are dealing with school children at home while having to navigate all of this. So this little political firecracker landed right in the middle of a dry pile of cultural tinder, and it's getting hot in here. And that's why this is the perfect time to do some life planning. Wait, what, Roger? And that's the sender of the email. That's right, I said it. This is the ideal time to take a hard look at what you're really working and living for. Because when you have clarity about these things, you have the ability to put all of these issues in their proper place. When you get clear on your direction, you have the ability to build a financial fortress, because you can decide what to build on and what to eliminate from your life. And of course, we can help you build the tax-saving walls around that very fortress. And it's calendar link to the calendar or a phone number, kind of whatever your preference is. Now, for some portion of my readers, these political and cultural events do have real impact on their day-to-day lives. For a host of reasons, these things are directly pertinent to their work, their families, and their outcomes. But that number might be much smaller than is the number of my readers who are allowing these cultural riptides to keep them from moving their lives forward. And today, I suggest that one strong antidote to the feelings of helplessness and anxiety that are running rampant around you and maybe within you is to take some time to dream. And we talk about kind of some big picture life stage planning on that. So what does that have to do with taxes? Very little. But it does offer opportunities to build that relationship and establish the relationship of trust with your clients. These are the kinds of emails that get forwarded. Now, I also, with business owners, we're taking a different tack. I mean, here's something that I wrote a couple weeks ago related to the rumors of automatic forgiveness. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but offered some advice on behalf of our clients that it might make sense to hold your fire on the application process if your PPP loan was less than 150K, and reasons. And obviously this stuff is changing on a week-to-week basis depending on guidance. And so we're kind of putting out all the newest information as we can. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you'll notice in both of these, they're written from the perspective of a real person. And it's not just some dry article about tax planning and what have you, but it's written from a point of view. Now, doing that properly, like I've been doing this every week for over a decade. And so I'm pretty good at navigating the different political and cultural hot buttons to make sure that you don't like tick off all, half of your clients or what have you. We can all agree on certain things though, and that is that the mental noise is keeping all of us from moving our life forward. And so that's what we talked about this week related to all this stuff, because a progressive person and a conservative person, a left winger and a right winger, can both agree when they're thinking clearly that the stuff out there is keeping them from building what's in here. So speak to that. Whether you have me do it or my team and I do this for you, I highly recommend that in your email marketing, you have the gumption to write clearly and authoritatively to your clients, and write in such a way that gets them to respond. Now, look, you run some risks. I'm copied on some of my clients who are like flaming right wingers, and they are writing some fiery stuff. And look, that's their business. Some on the opposite side of the spectrum too. And that's your right. But what's good is if you've got a perspective and a point of view, use it. Don't be afraid to make recommendations. Now, of course, with FINRA, if you do some financial stuff on the side, you've got to be careful there. And obviously, some CPA board regulatory stuff, you've got to be careful making particular advice. Have all the necessary disclaimers, circular, IRS circulars, etc. But don't be afraid to speak clearly. So look, when you do this kind of stuff, you get high open rates. So this is from our email sender, and this tracks us against thousands of other businesses. This is the app that we use to send on behalf of clients. And the reason why the score is so good, it's an excellent, is because we're sending out emails that are getting opened and read and acted upon. Got this email from one of our clients about 2 months ago now. And he said, I thought marketing emails were stupid and would never work. But then my clients started responding with stuff like, these are great, love the emails. I fully expected snarky responses, but it's only been positive. That's because Roland is sending out emails like the one that I just wrote this week that are actually speaking to the conversation of what's going on in the minds of your prospects. So also you'll notice that there's a different message for business owners than there is for 1040 clients, that there's a segmentation to the list. We have a different content track for tax resolution clients. We also put these in Spanish. But again, the point is, don't be afraid to take a stand. All right.
Can I say something about what you just did?
Sure.
Because I think I'm sure a lot of people are thankful for what you just laid out. But you guys just got a quick crash course in how to write an email from someone who is master Yoda level at writing emails. And I think we might consider spinning that out into its own segment. I've seen old Perry Marshall, one of his
they don't know who Perry Marshall is.
Yeah, that's fine. Perry Marshall's like top level marketer. We love him. But one of the things that he writes a lot about is like when one of his students finally asked him, would you just teach me how to write emails like you? And, obviously this could sound vain or conceited, but like truthfully, if you can capture some of what Nate just talked about in developing voice and confidence and not being afraid and going beyond the idea of email simply being a newsletter or an update, but actually like developing rapport and relationship, whether you have us do that for you or you do it yourself, it is effective. It's highly effective, and Nate is a master at it. And if you get the recording, maybe go back and watch that segment because that's worth its weight in gold.
So we wanted to talk to you about these leads and kind of dive into these. Again, that's at taxproleads.com or taxpromarketer.flow or .com/flow. And why don't you talk about these since we haven't really had the chance to, some of our folks. So what's customer voice?
Yeah. So if you're an existing website client of ours, you've already got this. And if you're not a client, you could get this. And by the product of being on this webinar, if you want to get these, the first 20 who go to that link Nate's dropping for you guys right now, you're going to get access to 4 free tools. And it's within a dashboard that has a bunch of fun stuff on it. And just by being on this webinar and signing up, customer voice is probably the main one I want you to take away with. Look at the bottom right of this little slide, send request. This is how you're going to quickly, first name, last name, email. Once you connect your Google My Business page, if you've got it, again, some base assumptions that you've already got it, getting it optimized, again, don't forget. But if you want to just get reviews, use this. You can do 15 per month using our free trial level to get new reviews.
We do more for our existing clients, but yes.
Yep, and here's what it does. It's going to lead them to a direct page on Google with your business, and the screen is going to auto pop up the place where they start typing.
So the way that you do this is you pick your best clients and send this to them.
Yep.
The ones that you know will respond positively.
Yeah, and so it's you'll be able to see the message in the settings.
And then if they do a review, that's why we got tool number 2.
Tool number 2.
Reputation management, which honestly, some companies charge like $1,000 a month for this sort of service.
Yeah.
And you get it for free.
You get it for free. You can respond to reviews from Google or Facebook with this trial level. So jump on there and connect your profiles and maybe see some responses that are missing. So Google loves when you respond. And if you can take the time to respond to your Facebook or Google reviews, it's not only a great thing as a signal to them that you're engaged and active, again, one of thousands of signals you need to be aware of, but it also says a great thing to your prospects about who you are.
By the way, somebody mentioned that taxproleads.com, when they typed it in, didn't work. If that's the case, I did just use the second link, taxpromarketer.com/flow. It should work. It's worked on our end, and we've got a bunch of applications already. So, feel free to do it. Now, Listing Builder, this is an interesting one.
Yeah. So basically what this is going to give you with Listing Builder is kind of an awareness of a few things. It's first of all going to give you just a free profile. That's kind of like step number 1 is just a free authoritative profile with your information for your business. But it also, as you can see here, is going to connect to a few other things. Look at the top. Are you listed accurately on search engines, directories, apps, and GPS? And then seeing the data that streams in. So if you've never seen your Google My Business data, go connect your Google My Business page, look at Listing Builder, and just look at your actions, your search, types, everything that's going on. And last but not least, your social marketing analysis.
We don't have a screenshot for that.
We don't have the screenshot for that.
Awesome.
That didn't make it.
But it's pretty awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It might be the.
Yeah,
it honestly maybe of all the 4, the least of the 4 that I want you to highlight, but it's going to be very similar where you connect your Facebook page, you can get data breakdowns of engagement, how much you've posted, what's going on. All of that will be yours for the first 20 people to go to taxproleads.com. I again just tested that link and it was working for me, but taxpromarketer.com/flow. If it's somehow not working, go there, fill out the form, get free tools. At a minimum, go get reviews and respond to reviews. It's really important. And if you want help, we'll chat more about that.